Evening, Leigh.
Good evening. It is Friday night.
You've joined us on a Friday
Watch
evening.
The West Wing. I know you're listening to this on a Thursday, but it's Friday night for us, and I've got a glass of orange wine.
An orange wine, a skin contact, Leigh. Excellent.
I do, yes. Got myself a bougie can of orange wine from Clapton Craft.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It's so brave of you to leave your kind of Pinot Grigio world. No disrespect. We are Grigio gals.
We are.
I've just got a gin and tonic. Heavy
Beautiful.
on the gin, low on the tonic.
What Fiona's mother would refer to as a reviving gin and tonic.
It's exactly the fruit. And it just happens that on a day where you spend any time with my family, there's a reasonable amount of just sort of, it's just an overwhelming space. And at some point, someone will offer you a reviving, or sometimes often referred to as a revitalizing gin and tonic. And I would always say, accept it, because you need it.
But dear listener, you're listening to Queer Gals Watch The West Wing. And this week we are covering season 4, hard to believe, episode 3, College Kids. A title that got me very excited.
Your first message on the shared doc was taking me in a direction that was, it was wild.
It was simply not where we went. But my big dream for this episode, when I saw the episode title, was that it was going to be like a rom-com style, as we know Aaron Sorkin to be truly a rom-com writer, a rom-com style series of flashbacks to Abby and Jed's courtship as college kids.
I would watch that. Maybe referring back to our season recap of season 3, maybe that's the play that we want.
Ooh.
Is actually when Jed met Abby.
A little bit of Abby doing a kind of bang, bang, bang with the trolley.
Ding, ding, ding with the bell. Phenomenal. I was like, oh, college kids, we're going to be like focusing on the attack at Keniston State. But if we're referencing college kids, 2 of Bartlett's daughters are in college.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I dream, Leigh, that we get some Bartlett daughters?
You dare not, as it turns out.
The previously on for this episode very much takes us back to the end of last week. And Leigh, I think you were right when you said, I think that this season is going to pass by in very tiny time increments.
Yeah, we seem to every episode be kind of picking back up almost immediately where we left off.
Which actually I find very satisfying, because in earlier seasons, we were sometimes jumping months at a time.
Which was kind of hard to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like I'm firmly grounded in time and place this season.
Yes. Speaking of being grounded, we start in the sit room with some stunning graphics with our Joint Chiefs and, of course, President Bartlett.
Yes, what I will refer to as the kind of Spy Kids level of graphics that is present throughout this episode.
A sensational reference. I would say that that's bang on where we are graphics-wise. We're firmly in the first Spy Kids film.
Mm-hmm.
The question I proffer to you is Jed high?
I thought it was going to become clear over the course of the episode what was going on here. It did not.
Yeah.
What Jed says, he's really on one. It's like, has he just recently gotten his ADHD diagnosis?
Has he taken a fall?
And been given legalized speed. Is that what's happened here?
There was an element of that. There was an element of, do you remember when he took the pain medication?
Oh, that was fun. No, but what he says
he's like, I'm thinking about getting a dog.
What he says is, listen, I know we're here for a serious purpose, for a sober purpose, but I wanted to say I've never been part of a street gang before, and that's basically what we are. A pretty well-financed one, but anyway, I wanted to say it feels good, and I think that we're done with this meeting. I think we should get out and get girls, and I don't know, maybe knock over a fruit stand or something.
It's wild. Leo then looks at him in a slightly confused manner, and I think asks him quite a simple question, and Jed just responds with, we're going to need to learn how to sing and dance.
Which confirms for me that when Jed is discussing a street gang, what he is in fact picturing is West Side Story.
It's a very Jets-based peg in a very mental shaped hole.
Yeah, there's pas de bourrées involved in Jed's version of gang life.
Yeah, a jazz leap, if you will. He's very distracted. He gets a note. They're talking about the ongoing kind of issues of international security.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I've just got this note that Josh and Toby are walking into work. That's a really interesting thing, isn't it, Leo? Leigh, do we think that as the kind of unfolding issues in Kumar continue, Jed is becoming more and more aware that he has started a war?
Yeah.
And he's spiraling.
Yeah. I think he is spiraling. I think he's also becoming less and less emotionally open. Especially with Leo. We kind of saw that with Abby last season, but I feel like with Leo, he's becoming less of an open character, which is interesting.
It's not that there's tension, it's just that there's a wall up.
Yeah.
Which is really different for them, especially in that scenario in that room. But essentially, so the Kumari government have fabricated some evidence, and then they are going to launch an attack on Israel because they have said that it's Israel that ordered the assassination of Sharif. And obviously the states know that that's not correct, but they can't say that that's not correct because otherwise that will out them. And then Israel may then attack Lebanon in order to launch an attack on Hezbollah, who may or may not start by launching an attack on them. And what I say is, in this TV show, it is 2002.
Yeah.
And is it kind of a little bit mad that there's some comparison to what is happening literally right now this week?
Literally right now this week, but not only that, like to the Arab Spring from when we were in high school. Like, Aaron Sorkin is either a time traveler or an intuitive, or he is a witchy man.
He's getting his tarot read. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I know that for sure. He's got crystals.
Yeah.
Jed briefly mentions Ellie.
Which is exciting because we've pretended kind of that Ellie doesn't exist for quite a while.
Really? Any of his daughters?
Yeah.
Let's not forget we didn't see Zoe at all in season 3.
Wild.
Yeah. He then kind of is like, this is an issue, deal with it, see ya.
Yeah, I truly didn't fully understand what had just happened.
No.
But what I would love is to be able to identify a problem, kind of mic drop, and then walk out of the room and just expect the people present with me to have come up with solutions by the time I re-enter the room.
Oh, I would love to be in a position of power where I didn't always have to find the solution.
Even if you still have to make the decision, just having someone say to you, we've got option A, option B, and option C. What a beautiful way to live.
Isn't it? I felt immediate comfort that we then went straight to Air Force One with CJ. I felt like I was in safe hands once again. And that begged the question for me is, are we going to the uni where this attack has happened, do some sort of speech, or are we going to a uni? It's all very education-based, but I'm kind of unsure where we are.
Yes, and what I was loving, I was completely distracted because the list of guest stars that was coming across the titles over CJ, I was like, what a cast. I was like, hello, Joanna Gleason returning as Jordan. Whoa.
We dreamed and our dreams were fulfilled.
They were fulfilled. CJ holding court as ever.
Yeah, she's just sort of moving through the press gaggle, cracking jokes.
Just doing a type 5.
Honestly. And then she's like, you've all heard obviously about Josh and Toby's kind of like fun escapades. Anyway, we've given them 4 hours vacation. What would you do with 4 hours vacation, Leigh?
I kind of just had 4 hours vacation in between work and this. And I'm ashamed to say what I did was I did both litter boxes in the house. I changed my sheets. I hoovered. And I put the old sheets on to wash.
There's no shame in that because that is only rewards for future you.
Yeah.
I did exactly the sort of same breakdown of things yesterday, daytime. And then I was just reaping the rewards, Leigh, all evening. And knowing that I had clean sheets when I went to bed, which is the finest feeling a human can feel. Should we have a little check-in with Bruno?
Please.
Because Bruno is meeting Deborah for the first time.
The staring contest between Bruno and Deborah is one of the best things I've ever seen. I don't know what was going on between them, but the charisma of those two actors together, something was a crackling.
Yeah, I wish for more scenes with them together, but I appreciate some sort of Bruno face-off where Lily Tomlin's character had not a single line. She just sort of remained silent and he crumbled. And I enjoyed that.
It was beautiful to see.
It really was. Then Bruno's like, we need a lawyer. And I'm getting confused about why we need a lawyer. We'll circle back to this. I was having a great time in this episode, but I was thoroughly bamboozled throughout.
And then, Fiona, I ceased caring that I was bamboozled because we get the return of Senator Stackhouse. A name I never thought would be brought up again. I thought he was firmly in Mandyland after Grandfather's All.
Yeah. I thought it was a one and done situation.
It feels like season 4 might be kind of like a greatest hits album.
Oh, I'd love that. And actually, I do see that for Aaron if he knows he's leaving at the end of the season. Just be like, I'm going to get them all back.
And it would appear, Fiona, that Stackhouse is running for president. How do we feel about that?
You know what? So he'll be running as an independent. And that's very on brand, I think, for this gentleman. I think that he's just a curmudgeonly old gentleman.
I know.
Must be heard. But my question to Senator Stackhouse is, what happened to supporting your fellow grandpa? I thought we had a deal. I thought we had a gentleman's agreement.
Agreed.
And yet here we are. And you're going to put a little spanner in the works, are you? What we kind of get also in this scene is the slow dawning realization from Debbie Fitterer that she has entered, in fact, the most insane workplace ever. And just Lily Tomlin does it so well. It's just this, over the course of about 3 minutes, this look on her face of pure terror, I think would be how I would describe it. And almost like she loses color in her face. Like she physically goes pale.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And then I'll just put this is a little moment for flowers for Bruno, because we're all talking about what we're going to do and we're getting to where we're going, which I think is to go and talk to some teachers. Yeah. And it's all about how Bartlett wants to push education. And essentially, Bruno's point is 44 people have just died. I really don't think we can give a speech on education. And I wanted to give Bruno his flowers for that, because I was like, we could so do a Toby and a Josh and get stuck in policy right now. And actually, I think we just need to be human beings. And I didn't necessarily expect that for Bruno.
I think he's got a pretty good EQ, I think, actually. I think that's like an important part of his job, because he has to, as a campaign guy, campaigns are like run on people's emotions, as we will get into in the study session.
Leigh, Jordan is back.
And I cannot handle John Spencer's game. I can't handle it.
It's actually kind of outrageous, though.
There's also something about the fact that she is taller than him in heels that makes it even hotter for some reason.
Yeah, and then just immediately starts cracking jokes as if they were married.
I have no idea what he's actually saying, but I know I like the collection of words. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. When he goes like, that's an entirely different kettle of beans and we can have that discussion, but history's shown that if you just wait and tell it to a divorce lawyer, you can have half my stuff.
I don't want half your stuff.
You don't know. Some of it's good stuff. He's like in a Laurel and Hardy routine.
Do you know what? He and Jed have the same energy of going full Katharine Hepburn. Do you know what I mean? He then takes her into the Situation Room.
which we've seen this happen with the Oval Office, where we see a character walk into the Oval Office for the first time and how that impacts them. And it gives the space a whole new power because we just see people who are used to coming in and out of that room all the time. But we've not seen that with the Situation Room before. And it's really fascinating to watch. It's an amazing performance from Joanna Gleason of how she takes us through Jordan's response to that.
Yeah, and I think with the kind of way that season 3 ended and then us kind of really jumping straight into action in season 4, it felt really important to have that new person in that space.
Yeah.
And remind ourselves, like, what the fuck we're doing here.
It's crazy, yeah.
And how big the stakes are. Again, we get some stunning map graphics.
It's beautiful.
We get some, like, this is how far rockets could launch graphics, which made me laugh out loud, but in a really heartfelt way.
It was humbling. It was emotional. It was take me back to the era of those graphics, honestly.
Yeah, a safe place. What I then found interesting was Leo gets down to kind of the crux of it, and he's like, so you know that there was this piece on the news about this plane going missing in Bermuda and this guy from Kumar dying and everyone that was on the plane being lost. And she was like, I don't think I saw that.
Which is so good because we see these characters who like their lives completely revolve around this stuff. And you go like, oh yeah, for your average person living their life, going to work, doing their thing, it's not necessarily front page news on purpose. They wouldn't necessarily know.
Exactly. And I think that was so refreshing and so clever to have Jordan not know how like big of a deal this was. Even
as a very informed woman
person who's, you know, reading the newspaper, no doubt. Yeah. So we conclude that scene with Leo telling her everything that's happened. And I was like, you could hear a pin drop, honestly, the kind of magnitude of the moment, because finally we have the first person outside of Jed, Nancy and Fitz who know about this. And I, like you say, it's such a masterful performance because she just doesn't know where to put how she feels.
No.
But she's like, okay, this is the biggest moment of my career, but also this is terrifying and confusing.
And there's also like a slight element of like, I didn't consent to this. I didn't want to be the carrier of this information.
No,
like, I didn't
and now
want
I
this
have
job.
no choice in a way but to carry on because I don't know what would happen if I would say no. Like, how do we handle that? But from one hottie to another, Leigh. Special Agent Michael Casper.
It's
lovely to have you back on our screens, baby. We've missed you. You're a hun. You're top tier hun. Really.
Marriage material. Every time.
Honestly, I lock him down.
Donna, get into it.
There was chemistry.
Get involved.
He's going to be pulling home a lovely paycheck.
Make him your man.
He respects you. He sees you as more than a secretary. Let's go. Anyway, wow, we should really say more about how we truly feel. Casper arrives, and basically the info that he has is that the bomber or bombers from the college attack left a letter. And they're trying to like kind of decipher where all the information's come from. But the letter does say that they are intending to do more violence in the next 48 hours. But there aren't really any like terms about what they want at this point. And then you had a very interesting thought.
I was like, is the pipe bomb at Keniston State going to end up being connected to the assassination as like a form of retaliation?
Like undercover. Yeah. I don't think that's a stupid thought.
Yeah. It's also just so crazy to have two such big kind of parallel plot lines.
It's important to note that Jed is receiving this information as they've like got off Air Force One and he's physically walking to the podium to give this speech.
I love when we're mid-flow. We're like moving and grooving and we need to like we're in real time walking up to speak. There's a lot of that in this episode and I really love it. But the line of the scene for me was, this letter isn't a threat, it's an announcement. Bam! The camera is circling. It's so, it couldn't be more high stakes.
The circling camera work is really interesting because it does kind of give you the whole, like, we're really thinking on our feet here.
Yes.
Because we received the information from Casper, and then kind of taking that on board, they also kind of haven't really decided what they're going to say.
Yeah. They're workshopping the speech as he's walking up to the podium. And then Jed just eventually goes, I think I'm just going to talk for a little bit. Terrifying. That could have gone so badly.
I was sweating.
Riffing in this context, when a tragedy has just occurred, you know that one of my most hot button issues is men giving speeches that they've not planned.
Oh, God, because it can go so wrong. It can go so wrong. Yeah, I was sweating. He's walking, there's some beautiful tracking shots of him, like, walking up to the stage, through the crowd, and the camera work is really outstanding in this scene.
It's just like the camera's moving constantly. Like, there's not one point where the camera is static.
And that's what's so powerful, is we're constantly moving. There's always momentum, and then we just hold on him.
And what does he do, Fiona? He kills. He annihilates, but in a verbal way.
It's incredible. Would you like to perform, or shall I?
I think we should give it to you, Fiona, as our resident Jed.
Thank you. Joy cometh in the morning, scripture tells us. I hope so. I don't know if life would be worth living if it didn't. And I don't know yet who set off the bomb at Keniston State. I don't know if it's one person or 10, and I don't know what they want. All I know for sure, all I know for certain is that they weren't born wanting to do this. There's evil in the world, there'll always be, and we can't do anything about that. But there's violence in our schools, too much mayhem in our culture, and we can do something about that. There's not enough character, discipline, and depth in our classrooms. There are not enough teachers in our classrooms. There isn't enough, not nearly enough money in our classrooms, and we can do something about that. We're not doing enough, not nearly enough to teach our children well. And we can do better, and we must do better, and we will do better, and we will start this moment today. They weren't born wanting to do this.
He works in a Crosby, Stills and Nash reference at one point. It's just like... Jed. Whoa.
And what's really, really fun is as he's like about to go into the crowd, Sam just calls to him, because kind of Sam's working point with him because Josh is on this 4-hour vacation.
Yeah.
Sam just goes, sir, joy cometh in the morning. And he just goes, thank you, Sam. And you're like, to know as Sam Seaborn that actually if I just give him some scripture, that's going to give him his anchor, because if I know anything, I know that Jed knows the Bible, and that will like plant
Anchor
a seed
him.
in him. If this is Sam's season.
Truly. We've kind of had Josh's season with his recovery from being shot. Did we have a CJ season last season, do we feel?
I think it was quite CJ heavy. She was going through some stuff.
But also, again, with this speech, it's just as relevant today. I mean, like when we talk about like young men and incel culture and school violence, you know, it's like you could give this speech tomorrow.
Yeah, and it would still be relevant.
If all of the wingnuts wouldn't be like, that was Jed Bartlett, not you. It would be so stealable, and you could just give that speech today.
Yeah. But to take you, Leigh, from a moment of like clarity and political kind of majesty, if you will, if that's not too much to say, we will go to what I'm going to describe as absolute insanity in the sit room with Jordan and Leo.
There's so many levels to this.
I've been thinking a lot about an egg salad sandwich on a Kaiser roll. And if it's Milosh making the potato salad, then potato salad. And if it's not, then a potato in any other form will be fine.
And then Margaret's voice just coming out of the ether is so brilliant, because you don't even know that he's like on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is happening? But the layers of like, it's the situation room. It's an international conflict. We're lawyer and client, but also we've like definitely, I think, fucked. And it's like, there's so much happening.
Jordan is so out of her depth at this point. She's just like, I don't know what's happening. And then he's like, hey, let's get your file up on the big screen. Presses another intercom button. It's like, like, hey, Ray, throw up that thing. And then it's just like her personal file that the government have.
Jordan, this is your life. And Leo flirting with a woman on the basis of her resume is so hot.
He says two insane things. One of them is, look at that smile. You could light up Chicago. With reference to like, I guess the like stock photo of her.
Her like security photo.
Yeah. And then he says, because she's like, wow, like how do you guys have this? He says, you got to give these guys some notice, but they can put on a show. Which is mental. I will say, Leigh, this is the point in the episode where you made some notes about Jordan's necklace, and I'm so glad that you did.
Jordan is wearing a statement necklace throughout this episode, and it is crazy. It's like a massive, sparkly padlock around her neck.
It's awful. I feel really strongly about it. And actually, there are more details that come later in the episode that truly expand on how awful it is. Joanna Gleason is a very handsome woman.
And she's not put a foot wrong fashion-wise until this necklace.
And I just think it's 2002. I see that necklace and I'm like, it's 2002. What a scene. What a scene that they both do. And I love how Leo is saying all of these things, and everything that he's saying is absolutely terrifying. But he is saying it in a way that is trying not to scare her.
As if he's like Bob Hope. It's just like...
It's very interesting writing because everything has such high stakes, but equally he's being so professional and he's so aware of how this moment must feel to her. It's really clever. Toby's back from vacation.
Wearing a beautiful suit. It's kind of like subtly checkered with like blue and red going, but in a very subtle print. He looks incredible. Toby's fashion game has really evolved over the course of the 4 seasons, and I'm really proud of him.
We met him in like a firm, like divorcee, and like getting this off the rack situation. And I just think as he and Sam Seaborn have got closer,
that is so true.
I think Sam's been like, I've got a good tailor. Because Sam has a tailor.
I also think that Toby has learned to love himself again since his divorce over the course of the time that we've known him. Fee is crying.
I can't think about him with his TV dinners. It's too much.
He's not having TV dinners. He's having like a Philly cheesesteak in his office with CJ.
Okay. Thank you. You've brought me back from the brink. Josh.
To an insane moment with Donna and Josh?
Yes. Okay. Josh or Donna, who would you like?
I will be Donna. Hello.
Hey.
Did you sleep all right?
I did, but then I read this thing. How you doing?
Good. I watched this scene, rewound it, and had Lizzie watch it with no context. And I was like, what is the relationship between these two characters? And she was like, they are either exes or they're fucking. It's so loaded. It's such a like simple interaction, but the energy that Bradley Whitford gives it is like, I love you.
I want to talk about the pause that he makes after he says
the pause,
because I read that pause as previously I've always just told you everything that's in my head, but I'm trying to set boundaries. I don't need to tell you my dreams. You're my colleague.
I could write a thesis on this exchange. It is fascinating. Something has changed for Josh. No, I think in those 40 hours in America, I think he's finally realized in those 40 hours in America that he loves her.
See, I don't dare to dream. I do not dare to dream. I want that. I do. But in my head, I'm thinking it's much more like, if I don't fucking step up, I'm going to lose this woman and she is keeping me in my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think as we find out as this episode goes on, in a post-Amy world, he knows he needs to tread really carefully with Donna.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I think it's like all come together in his head. And I think he's now being weird.
Oh God, it's weird.
Because he doesn't, something has changed. You know, that whole thing.
But since he and Toby met the dad in the bar, they are now for the students. Power to the students. And they've decided that they're like, we're going to do this thing where we're going to make paying college tuition tax deductible for people.
So good.
So good. However, there's not really much time to kind of enjoy that because everyone is passing by them and taking the piss out of them for taking so long to come back to DC.
It's incredible. Admiral Scott, your expedition's returned.
All right.
Let me take a look at you, Don Quixote de la Mancha.
CJ is loving this.
She's on
frankly.
fire.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it.
And then a little piece of plot happens, which is, we were talking about a lawyer earlier. I was confused. The lawyer is to do with something regarding the debates. And currently, it's just like you have your Republican candidate and your Democrat candidate. And there was some sort of ruling which was like to make it all people who are running for president.
So in order to qualify for the debates, you have to be polling above a certain level.
That makes sense.
Which third-party candidates are against, obviously, because they want to be involved in the debate. And that's how you reach a wider audience. But it's also a kind of quality check.
Which,
so not just anyone can call themselves a presidential candidate.
And go on TV and then like potentially crash.
Because you don't want 16 people stood on the stage, you know?
No.
Yeah.
So you can understand why Bruno, CJ, Toby, everyone's a little stressed about it. The problem is that they're talking about this ruling and they're like, no, don't worry, that will never pass. And what do we know from this TV show, Leigh? If you talk about things never happening,
they're gonna happen.
They're gonna happen. So it happens. Cue us being at 2 p.m. in the Roosevelt Room, trying to keep our shit together, essentially.
So they're two slightly separate issues. So there's the issue of the threshold you have to reach polling wise in order to qualify for the debate. And then there's the question of who's going to be given the control over making election decisions, like who's going to be in charge of like the election authority, basically. And they're saying that it's never going to be given to a particular group that are more likely to side with the Republican side over how many debates they want.
Oh, so there's an element of how many debates?
Yes.
Gosh, it's ever so complicated for 40 minutes of TV, isn't it?
There's so much going on. So much.
Yeah. This is why I was talking about being bamboozled. Because essentially, in my head, I was like, is it to Stackhouse or not to Stackhouse?
It's not to Stackhouse or to not Stackhouse. Stackhouse is not going to make it onto the debate stage. I don't think he's like polling well enough.
But he's saying, I should.
He's saying he would love the opportunity to, but essentially what we discover over the course of the episode is that Richie is saying, his campaign is saying, we only want 2 debates. And they're saying that because they know that Richie isn't good at debates because he's stupid. Whereas Jed's campaign is pushing for more debates so that they can have a debate almost dedicated issue by issue.
Yeah, smart, because Jed's a great speaker.
So what happens is control over who makes those decisions is given to the person who errs on the side of Richie and wants to do less debates.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I was very lost. Thank you. This is really helpful. And now I also understand more deeply Bruno's fury.
Yes, because we end up in a place where we've decided that Richie has essentially gotten exactly what he wanted, which is just the 2 debates.
That's so shit.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that Jed absolutely decimates him in those 2 debates, which undoubtedly he will. Small piece of conjecture, which is, I didn't write it down because it was so phenomenal, but it is My Man, I Feel Like a Man, which is CJ and Josh talking about, I want to say it was like Article 9. It was something 9.
Title 9.
Title 9, which was about scholarships at colleges, right?
Title 9 is what we're going to do in the study session.
Incredible.
Essentially, they are arguing back and forth about who cares more about sports, men or women.
Yes. That's what I found interesting.
Yes.
Because
Which we will get into later.
great. Incredible.
CJ kind of shouts at him and goes, "It worked."
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's an Alison Janney voice. To Debbie and Charlie, a lovely scene with these two. Also, a moment for Charlie to remind us, like, kind of what his job has cost him. So he's going through all the security checks with Debbie. And she's kind of like, I've worked in this building before. Like, okay, so I say some crazy things in the documents I put forward. Like, I'm just kind of a kooky bitch. And he's like, no, this isn't a normal job. Like, and the quote was, I was 4 feet away from him when the guns started firing.
It's crazy. And then he essentially goes like, yeah, you're the one with the panic button if someone's trying to get into the Oval Office.
Yes.
Like, you are what is between those people and the president.
Like, you can't be flippant about this.
No.
Which is a really interesting kind of like power dynamic. Because I do feel like Mrs. Landingham and Charlie was very much her being like, these are the ways of this world. So it's really interesting to see that role reversed.
Yes, yes.
And Charlie to be like, I'm going to teach you how this office works. Really nice. So there's going to be a memorial for the students that died in the attack at Keniston College. And Richie is like, I want to go. And Jed isn't happy about that. And I would like to say, rightly so. He is the president. It is his role that he should speak after there's been a national tragedy. And this is 100% not a political event.
It's not a campaign event, Richie.
Yeah, I think it's actually really yucky that
It's
he
gross.
tries to go.
It's so gross.
But I wonder if we might see that next episode. I do think Richie needs to return sooner rather than later.
Agreed.
We're undercut from that moment of kind of like juiciness by just outrageous flirtation between Fitzy and CJ.
The scene I never knew I needed. The way Fitzwallace calls her Claudia Jean, it's just like, whoa. I didn't expect those two to have banter. She then in return calls him Sailor.
She's like, Sailor. And then you just hear Leo being like, you're in the Oval Office. And I need backstory for this little in-joke.
Yeah, I need to know how they know each other.
Yeah, like, when have their paths crossed that much? There's a scene with our boys talking war games, to which I was just like, this is crazy. Like, the escalation on this is mental.
It's wild.
And Casper's coming back in. He's got more info. And I'm just like, love to see Special Agent Casper about, but could we not just touch base on CJ Stalker, or are we just going to never mention that again?
I think we're just never going to mention it again.
That's really frustrating for me. I'm really annoyed about that.
I needed to know if it was somebody in her circle that she knew, like...
I needed to know that, like, a person was going to get got.
I hope at some point we just get a mention of, like, by the way, CJ, he's gone to trial. Like, he's going away for a long time. Or something.
Yeah. The information from Special Agent Casper is that a lot of the information in this kind of threatening letter was gleaned from the internet. From lots of different groups, one which was called the Patriot Brotherhood and one which was called the Libertarian Cause. Yeah, scary. Why are you some sort of fortune teller, Aaron Sorkin?
To which Jed says, the internet has been a phenomenal tool for hate groups. Like,
honestly,
you don't even know the half of it, Jeddy boy. You don't know where we're headed.
It's going to get so much worse. And
Facebook doesn't even exist yet.
Oh. We've not even had the good era of Facebook before it went weird and bad. And then I got excited because Jed signed off the scene by being like, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
In ascending order of age, would you get my daughters on the phone, please?
And it's like, that is so fucking classic. Of course you're calling Zoe first. Any normal person would be like, I'll call my eldest and then my middle and then my baby. But he clearly loves Zoe the most.
He just has a favorite. And I know that most parents do, and that's fine. Okay, I'm an adult woman and I'm in therapy. But you need to be more subtle about it, Jed.
But should we go to Rock the Motherfucking Vote?
Yes, Leigh, because what the fuck is Rock the Vote? I have no context for this. I thought this was like a fun bit, and then you were talking about it like it's a thing that happens.
Oh yeah, it's like a big concert thing that happens.
Why don't we do that in the UK? It would be such a good idea.
It's fun.
It's for the youths.
It's get the youths involved in politics. Get them registered to vote.
Everyone keeps talking about how Stackhouse is going to be fine, and I would like to note that my immediate instinct was that he was dead. I was like, I think he's dead. I don't know why, but everyone's talking about, I think he's dead.
Which is classic, but also the further we get into the Stackhouse storyline, it does become more and more kind of like Biden adjacent. And I just go like, anyway, love the boys at the bar.
I know. Also, I genuinely think that Josh and Toby have had a great day at work.
Yeah.
And Josh has had a really good day of like doing politics. And Leigh, we are so far from bringing down big tobacco. We have grown so much.
Yeah, we truly have. Also, like, not the bare naked ladies making a guest appearance
on the West Wing.
On the West Wing.
It's so funny. It's such a 2002 lineup. It's phenomenal.
At one point in this episode, there's a mention of Sixpence None the Richer.
Again, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about, but it sounds fun. Should we talk about CJ's jeans and t-shirt combo?
Yeah. Alison Janney, not to objectify an actor that I respect very much, but Alison Janney's body should be illegal. In like a low-rise jean. She
looks so incredibly cool and sexy, but
and yet,
also like
as though she's put no effort in. Yeah. No effort.
It's the cut of the t-shirt that it's like a little tight. Mm-hmm. She's got these low-rise jeans on, and that her like because she's gesticulating, like her t-shirt is just like very, very slightly ridden up by like an inch. Mm-hmm. And it's so fucking hot.
It's crazy. And then not only that, she's like showing how much the youth of 2002 love her. Mm-hmm. But she's absolutely killing it, giving a speech to these like cool
20-somethings,
Y2K hipsters.
Yeah.
And she's just there being like, decisions are made by those who show up.
Yeah.
I would follow CJ Cregg or indeed Alison Janney into war.
Yeah, I mean, she's flawless to me. To me, you're perfect. But Casper has intel. Mm-hmm. Leigh immediately was off on her B plot, which is this link between the pipe bomb and the assassination. But I love it. I think we should continue to sort of plumb these depths and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
So the guys who have done the attack on Keniston State are now holed up somewhere.
Yeah.
And are cooking meth.
Of course.
And I was like, okay, so we've got like a standoff situation with the feds. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm so confused as to why someone would set off like 10 pipe bombs at a university and then cook meth. Like that is weird, right?
That is weird.
Can we? Yeah, let's like honestly, Wingnuts. Can you weigh in on this one? Because for me, I'm bamboozled by. We've just committed an act of terror, and now we simply must cook meth.
Yeah, I just don't know that.
I'm with Jed.
I don't know that people on meth would be capable of organizing a terrorist attack.
There's a reasonable issue with meth in the city that I live in, and this morning I can tell you that I did clean up human feces from outside my place of work. From someone who had enjoyed an evening on meth, and I'm just like, you aren't getting work done if you're doing that.
Oh my god! But then we just have the most insane exchange with Fitzy that we've ever had.
And honestly, again, there's back catalogue to go through here. Good evening, Mr. President.
Allergy medicine and tractor fluid we're getting high on now.
All right, you guys gonna get any strippers or something?
What?
So in my head, I'm like, one, Fitzy's been to a strip club.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's been to a strip club with Leo. I don't know. I'm just going to put it out there. I think maybe he and Leo have been to a strip club together, and I think he threw some dollars, and I think he had a good old time.
Yeah.
And I think now he's like, hey, we can joke about it, we're bros. But deep down, when he said you guys get in strippers, there was like a hopeful note to that performance. And you know what? I think he strikes me as someone who's sex worker positive.
Sex work is work.
Yeah. And I just think Fitzy's like, look, there's some great girls down at the club and I like to support these women.
Yeah.
Let's go. Stunning. So the plan from Fitzy is we're going to pretend that Sharif is alive. We're going to hire a lookalike.
I'm obsessed.
And send him to like a different country and then like leak photos of it so that the Kumaris can't say that he's dead and was killed by the Israelis. And therefore that's how we stop war.
Yeah.
I can only predict that this is going to go so wrong or be so stressful.
Yeah.
But I assume more on that later in the season. We'll just have to hold tight. I'm scared. Do you know who else is scared? Jordan.
Jordan gets it.
Big day for her.
Jordan's necklace remains crazy. I would just like to note.
So, I paused and I looked. I think the chain, what I thought was like a thick, chunky chain, is in fact a pearl necklace.
Yeah.
And I think that the padlock itself is in fact pearl encrusted rather than bejeweled.
It's a lot. It's a lot for like a day look. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, it's a lot to exist.
It kind of would maybe make more sense on like Chapel Roan.
Honestly, it's a costume look for stage. It's supposed to be under the lights.
You know, it was verging on Tin Man.
She says the most interesting line in this episode, which is, so Leah's explaining like why they did what they did, why they made the decision they did about Sharif. And she says, how is justice that has to be served in secret justice?
I don't know.
I think is so good.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
Chef's kiss. And like, because I do also think that Leo's retaliation line is so fair as well. I really like that. So I just like pulled that out. And then small bit of kind of conjecture surrounding Debbie and Jed is he refers to her both as a class act and then a whack job.
Which I would take as a huge compliment.
Yeah, amazing. It's all we would ever dream.
And it's a true moment of acceptance from Jed. Because if you recall, with Mrs. Landingham, he went like, speaking of other New England relics.
Yes. So this is how he shows love.
Yeah.
That's kind of the conclusion of his conversation with her about
her insane background history
form. And I really, the more time I spend with Deborah Fitterer, the more I'm like, you are the perfect hire for this job.
Yeah.
You are the perfect new character in this show.
Yeah.
But you're going to add depth and something different.
Yeah.
So more, please. We're going to close out back at Rock the Vote. So this was what I was getting confused with earlier. So we have the it works moment with CJ and Josh earlier. And
about Title IX.
About Title IX. And then Donna and Josh are talking about Title IX at Rock the Vote.
Yes.
And Donna just like spits some statistics.
It's phenomenal.
It's so good. And I'm like, I thought the moment was going somewhere. I thought they were locking in. And then Josh just stood up and went to Amy.
Yeah.
Because she was across the room.
Yeah. And it was a crazy exchange between the two of them. I was like, so we've broken up between seasons.
It was giving, we've not spoken since.
But they were in the room together when they found out about Secret Agent Simon Donovan. And they were in love.
I mean, I think they're still in love. I think that much is clear.
Aaron Sorkin needed to stop with the I miss you and the not connecting like lines and
him speaking over her accidentally as she says I miss you, I think ran a dagger through me.
Mary Louise Parker, you destroyed me with that. You destroyed me with that. And I want to make it super clear that any of our issues that we've had with Amy in the past, Mary Louise Parker built Amy. Like her performance as Amy has been flawless.
Oh, from start to finish. Incredible. I also think it's the perfect stylistic choice to have Amy have cut off the sleeves of her Rock the Vote t-shirt and make a little V in the cleavage.
Which is what I used to do with all of my high school t-shirts.
That's outrageously.
It was what we did.
You are very much an Amy gal. I think there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
But Leigh, what is the mic drop?
Amy's going to go work for Stackhouse.
I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. And it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And the music is so emotional because we're like in the deep depths of like 90s emo pop. And I'm like, ah.
And he's like, you're working for Stackhouse?
It's, yeah.
And then she's like, hey, well, like, kind of like, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
But in also a really devastating way. And then Josh and Toby just ring the dad from the bar to tell him about their day and what they've been working on. And I actually, like, yeah, that was a bit much for me.
Yeah.
I kind of teared up.
Agreed.
And that was the end of the episode, which is crazy.
There was so much, there were so many layers, there were so many threads, there was so much going on.
A lot of info in that episode.
Best fashion, Fiona.
I think despite the low-rise jeans, I have to agree with you that it's
Hey, if
CJ.
low-rise jeans work for you, they work for you. All I'm saying is I will never be caught dead in them because they will never work for me.
Yeah,
but if
I feel the same way.
If you can do it.
And Alison Janney can.
She can.
I'd like to propose a new concept, which is fashion jail.
I think as we head into 2003, I think we'll probably have to engage with
We're
that as a concept.
sending the necklace to fashion jail.
Agreed.
What could a British or Irish politician never get away with?
Speaking off the cuff.
Yeah, never, ever, 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 ever. That could never work here. It would be front page news. It would be an absolute
That's how
chaos.
we got running through fields of wheat. Was
Honestly.
speaking off the cuff.
Yeah, never forget. Queerest moment that never meant to be queer.
The eye contact between Debbie and Bruno.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to proffer that the post-breakup convo between Josh and Amy was very like two powerful lesbians in the same field coded.
You know what? They are actually very Bet and Tina in a way as a couple.
I think because they're just like powerful and honest and true and like, well, at the end of the day, I will do a good day's work, but like I have emotional feelings about you.
Yeah.
There's just something gay about that for me, like lesbian about it.
Best writerly moment.
For me, it had to be Jed talking about the street gang.
That's mad.
And specifically, I think we should go out and get girls and, I don't know, maybe knock over a fruit stand or something.
That's so funny. I mean, I think for me, it has to be like everything between Jordan and Leo in this episode was the best writerly moment.
Shout out to the concept of a kettle of beans.
Yeah.
And it's somehow that's sexy.
Yeah.
How dare you, John Spencer? Man, I feel like a man.
I think the thing that Josh says about men just like sports more. It's like, fuck you.
Oh, grow up.
And then obviously also the comment about getting some strippers from Fitzy.
From Fitzy, yeah. I'd like an honourable mention too. Look at that smile, you could light up Chicago. I want someone to say that to me.
Yeah.
And Leigh, what was the moment that made you proudest to be an American?
Claudia Jean rallying the crowd.
Yes, that's got to be up there. For me, because I'm an emotional woman, I loved ringing the dad from the bar.
Yeah.
Just to like check in. It's so classy.
So, Fiona, you mentioned earlier that CJ and Josh were debating about something to do with 9.
Yes, I think that was my terminology.
Yes. What if I were to tell you that Title 9, and indeed the Roman numerals for 9, are something that university female college athletes, some of them have tattooed on their body, that sexual assault survivor activists have tattooed on their body? Well, let's get into it.
Okay, I'm seated.
So, Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 was signed into law by President Nixon, although he had no idea what he was doing. to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex in any educational program or activity receiving government funding.
Mm-hmm.
Its major author was Representative Patsy Mink, a Democrat from Hawaii, who incidentally was also the first woman of color elected to Congress.
Go Patsy.
And she co-authored it with Representative Edith Green and Senator Birch Bayh. Great names.
Really good names.
This was something that was personal to Edith Green and Patsy Mink because Edith Green had wanted to be a lawyer but was pushed into teaching by her family. And Mink had been denied entry to medical schools on the basis of being a woman.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. They had considered trying to make an amendment to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but based on the struggle to pass the ERA, which we've talked about before, they decided that was going to be too difficult to get done. So when the Higher Education Act of 1965 was up for reauthorization, they slipped in a ninth title in a long list of other educational amendments with exactly the same language that they'd wanted to put into the Civil Rights Act, which reads, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." Margaret Dunkel, who served in the 1970s in both the Association of American Colleges project on the status and education of women and the U.S. Department of Health, Education and Welfare, summed all of this up by saying, first, it was admissions to graduate schools, and then sports and athletics. And then it became discrimination and pregnancy. If you were a high school girl and you got pregnant, you were likely to be kicked out of your school. And your boyfriend, who was captain of the football team, was likely to graduate and get college scholarships for football. Then it was the issue of sexual harassment. They're not resolved yet, but we've come a long way in terms of having ways to address them. And Dr. Elizabeth A. Sharrow, who's an associate professor of public policy and history at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, said that basically the way that Patsy Mink and Edith Green got Title IX done, quote, not by making a huge social movement driven by an aggressive stance for education equality. They did so very subtly and quietly, and they did that on purpose because they anticipated that this idea that we should name certain things as sex discrimination in education could be politically contentious, and they were better off finding ways to downplay it.
Smart.
Really smart. Yeah, so it started off as a way of equalizing college admissions, so having an equal number of women admitted to university as men. But actually, the most visible achievement of Title IX, as CJ says when she goes, "It worked," is actually women's sports teams, women's participation in sports, and kind of the explosion of sports for girls in the US, which I will say I did feel as like moving from Ireland as a 9-year-old girl where sports were very much seen as kind of a boy thing, and none of the girls in my primary school really participated in sports. Moving to the US where it felt like it didn't really matter, like all girls and boys did sports. It was like a noticeable difference in attitude, I felt like. But the reason for the focus on sports, although they're not like, necessarily central to education, they've gotten a lot of attention because they're one of the small parts of education that are still kind of explicitly segregated by gender.
Yeah.
Because, male and female students are expected to work together and compete in all other subjects. But then when it comes to sports, their competition is very much separated. The backlash kind of began right away around the time because the year after was when the Roe v. Wade decision came in. And so there was a whole load of debate about whether sports were even a proper place for women. Patsy Mink is quoted as saying, as backlash, referring to Roe versus Wade, as backlash, they fed each other. The backlash against women's bodily sovereignty and the backlash against women being able to use their bodies in athletics. So ultimately, it all comes down to what women's bodies are and are not allowed to do.
Yeah, as it so often does.
The deadline for high schools and colleges to comply with Title IX athletics requirements was July 21st, 1978. And the main kind of function of Title IX was you had to have the same number of women's sports teams as you did men's sports teams.
Yeah.
If they were going to be supported by federal funding.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically they measured how people were complying with the new rules by a 3-pronged test, which included participation, benefits and treatment, and athletic financial assistance. So who's participating in the sports, how they get treated once they're on a team, and what benefits they get for being on the team. And then how many women versus men are getting college scholarships on the basis of athletics.
Which is very interesting.
In May 1980, the oversight over Title IX was handed over to the new U.S. Department of Education through the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Now, several universities start to launch lawsuits. It heats up over the course of the 80s, making all kinds of arguments, including Josh's argument that women are just less interested in sports than men. And also the sports like basketball and football that were revenue building for the universities, that people bought tickets to, and it made the universities money. Those sports were never in danger. Ultimately, it was sports like especially wrestling that might see their funding being cut, that were generally only men's teams, but also weren't bringing in the kind of merch sales and ticket sales that football and basketball were. And so several universities argued that the men were actually having something taken away from them, which was unfair because those things were now having to be shared with giving scholarships and funding to women's teams. But ultimately, the courts decided, rather than focusing on a standard of interests and abilities in sports, they were going to focus on a standard of parity, meaning that the schools had to increase the number of female varsity athletes until the number of female varsity athletes was proportional to the number of female students. So if women were 55 to 60% of the student body, they had to get 55 to 60% of varsity slots and scholarships.
That's really interesting.
Now, why are we so focused on university, college, varsity sports, while maybe not focusing as much on like elementary and high school sports? First of all, Division I schools, which are like the main sports unis, have tens of thousands of students, and only about 600 men play on varsity teams. A lot more participate in kind of intramural sports or like club sports. So why the focus on specifically like the A-team varsity sports over anything else? First of all, it's administratively convenient because you can really easily count a number of varsity athletes. It's also well documented in terms of there's a paper trail for who's getting offered these spots and for how much. And there's also infrastructure to enforce it. So there's the National Collegiate Athletic Association, which tried to get intercollegiate sports exempted from Title IX. And then when they failed in that, they went all in, sponsored championships for women, created a gender equity task force, and became a major proponent of what became called the emerging sports for women. And they did all of that because what they were absolutely not going to do was reduce the amount of spending on men's football and basketball.
Which is, in a shady way, smart.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how much money there is.
Yeah. The Women's Sports Foundation and the National Women's Law Center reached like a tacit agreement with the NCAA to jointly promote competitive women's sports, not by cutting men's programs, but actually for pushing for more spending and more recruiting, which is how we've ended up in this crazy situation, which I know you and I both find bizarre in the US, where you've got like 18-year-old high schoolers with local TV crews at their house.
Yeah.
as they sign on the dotted line for which college they're going to go to. It's just like exploded. And ultimately, you know, from the Women's Sports Foundation perspective, that's largely because the WSF was run mostly by former professional female athletes themselves who wanted to create a pipeline for their sport so that women could come up and become professional athletes in their sport. And it was also about kind of creating visible role models for little girls to aspire to in sport.
Which I think we're already seeing. I think there's a generation now of athletes who are maybe a few years younger than us and maybe in their early 20s actually, who have been the benefit of that.
Yes. I mean, it is interesting because obviously now the debate has shifted now towards discussing transgender women in sports.
Yes.
But what I have been really enjoying is the content creators who have been going to those protests against transgender women being able to play on teams that align with their gender. And those content creators asking those protesters if they can name a professional female athlete. And the number of them that can't.
Funny. It's very good. And I think that's my favorite kind of like journalism that's being done on like kind of social media journalism that's happening at those events, is really precise questions that aren't actually that just, it's not really antagonistic at all. It's just like, oh, you're for this thing. Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
And then just letting it run. It's very satisfying.
So Brown University kind of tries to make the argument that women are just less interested in sports. But the court ultimately comes back in their decision by saying, quote, that the lower level of interest in competitive sports from women, quote, reflects women's historical lack of opportunities to participate in sports. To assert that Title IX permits institutions to provide fewer athletics participation opportunities for women than for men, based on the premise that women are less interested in sports, literally to quote Josh Lyman, is to ignore the fact that Title IX was enacted in order to remedy discrimination that results from stereotyped notions of women's interests and abilities. Since interest and ability evolve as a function of opportunity and experience, universities had a duty to create more female teams and also to recruit students to fill those teams and to offer women the same number of scholarships that they offer men. And it's basically like recognition from the courts that women have been conditioned to believe that being athletic is not feminine.
Yeah.
Which I know you had your own struggles with as a serious athlete, as a preteen.
Yeah. And as a teen, I was a teen athlete and I was made to feel like it was the most embarrassing thing. And that I wasn't like a real teenage girl because I was athletic. And as Leigh famously knows, because she's seen the pictures, my tiny little muscular body, I feel like there's every possibility that I would have made different decisions because I just chose to leave sport. I just didn't do it anymore because I was like, I, one, just don't want to get bullied anymore. And two, I just... It's lame. It's embarrassing to be sporty.
Which I think is to do with not having an equivalent of Title IX in this country.
Yeah, 100%. It does surprise me because Great Britain puts a lot of money into sport. You know, there's a lot of lottery funded sports schemes. You know, we obviously are really proud of our, Olympic teams. And, whether that's the Summer Olympics or the Winter Olympics, we want to get people out there. Yeah, it's super interesting that kind of doesn't exist in the same way here.
Yeah. During the Obama administration, the debate kind of shifted towards actually publicity for women's sports being equal. So the Seventh Circuit actually required an Indiana high school to schedule girls' basketball games, more of them, on Fridays and Saturdays, basically saying that having the girls' games on like a non-primetime slot basically meant less people came. And it made them feel inferior to the boys' team, which makes complete sense. There was also a shift in the 2010s towards Title IX having a focus more on sexual harassment within education, and actually the presence of sexual harassment, meaning that women in education did not have an equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you recall, we 100% watched this in uni because this was like our era. But an activist called Andrea Pino Silva, who has Title IX tattooed on her foot, made a complaint against the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 2013 for its handling of sexual assault on campus. And she went on to become the co-founder of a national survivor advocacy organization called End Rape on Campus. I'm sure you remember. And she was one of the main subjects of the 2015 documentary, The Hunting Ground.
Yeah, which is a phenomenal documentary.
Yes. And she is quoted as saying, the core of my activism was to talk about education access in the context of sexual harassment, which really at the time was not a common conversation. I think a lot of folks associated Title IX with sports access as well as access to universities. Our argument was talking about how if women were experiencing sexual harassment and assault, there could be no access to education. Now, obviously, Title IX has become a big point of debate again with the current president and the discussion of the very, very, very small proportion of transgender female athletes and their place in women's teams. It's something that Biden made some strides on, and Trump has obviously immediately walked back in a very celebratory fashion.
Yeah.
He also massively walked back the use of Title IX to help protect survivors of assault on campus.
Yeah.
Essentially, he made moves that would, rather than helping protect survivors, would actually help protect people accused of assault. But as CJ said, in terms of women's access to sports, in terms of cisgender women's access to sports, since Title IX, participation in sports in the 1971-1972 school year, 294,015 high school girls played on a sports team. In the 2018-2019 school year, 3.4 million high school girls played on sports teams. At the college level, NCAA schools rose from 29,977 athletes in women's sports in 1971 to 1972 to 215,486 in 2021. So to quote CJ, it worked.
It worked. The statistics really speak for themselves.
And now it has become a continuing question around women's coaching staff and making sure that there's the opportunity for female coaches to be promoted and paid equally to the men. But I don't think we can underestimate the profound impact on American women that Title IX has had. Yeah.
I'm so glad to have learned more about it. I can't believe that it wasn't something that was in my brain in any way. I had literally not a single frame of reference for that. And obviously it must have been raised when I was watching stuff like The Hunting Ground, but it just went totally over my head. So yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. And I think, people even go on to say, like, we wouldn't get Simone Biles without Title IX. We wouldn't get...
I don't think you would.
Serena Williams without Title IX,
No, there's generations of female athletes and female sports lovers that just wouldn't exist in the States and worldwide without something like Title IX.
I've been going to see the women Tottenham play. I've been going to see the women Tottenham. I've been going to see the football at Tottenham for the first time because it's a much more pleasant experience going to...
Oh no, Leigh, you've frozen. Is that me or is that you?
That's I can hear you. Hello.
Leigh was so excited just then to exclaim that she'd been to see Tottenham ladies that she disabled her own internet.
I don't know how that happened.
Which I think is a perfect point to which I should say you probably need to go and take a small lie down.
I probably should.
But thank you for teaching me all about Title IX. I will go and do more reading.
Please. And shall we meet up and do this again next week?
Yes, I'm really excited. And I'm looking forward to continuing the tiny incremental episode season that we've started on. I'm very excited.
Let's do it.
If you'd like to get in touch with the lovely Leigh or myself, please do drop us a little message. We are at Queer Gals Watch, wherever you get your socials, or at queergalswatch@gmail.com.
We are, yes. For now, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.